Today I want to find out, would it be possible to beat the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion using only the Staff of Worms? No weapons, no armor, no magic, no inventory, no nothing, just the Staff of Worms. Oh, and I'm allowing miscellaneous items such as lockpicking and Sigil Stones as they don't actually help you in combat. So naturally I had to console command it into my inventory right at the start of the game before we even left the sewers. This is the only time in the run where I'll be using a console command. Other than that, no cheats, glitches or exploits. So just in case anybody's unaware about what the Staff of Worms actually is, it is a magical staff held by Manamako, the King of Worms. I think, to be honest, if he actually commanded an army of worms instead of necromancers, that might be a lot more scary. However, upon finishing the Mages Guild and killing Manamako, you can collect his Staff of Worms. Being that it is indeed a necromancer staff, it has a reanimate target effect of 30 seconds. In essence, corpses will rise from the dead and fight for you, and that's the nature of this challenge. Can we beat Oblivion using just this mechanic? So I decided to be a Nord for their naturally high strength and endurance at the start of the game. See, originally I had the idea that I'd be collecting lots of items to sell, as eventually I'm going to need gold to recharge the Staff of Worms. However, this would violate one of the rules for this challenge, and therefore I'm going to have to find another way to get some gold. So the sewers is, well, the sewers, so it was extremely easy. I don't really have too much to say on the sewers, as you can basically just run past most of the enemies, and the Emperor's Guard will take care of any that you can't. However, I did revive Captain Reynolds, which to be fair was pretty cool. I even considered bringing her along for the ride. However, this would waste too much charge on the staff, as I'd have to revive her every 30 seconds. Ideally, I wanted to use the staff as little as possible in the tutorial, as I would just waste the charge. I chose the warrior as my birth sign for the increased strength and endurance. And I also made a custom class favouring endurance and speed, as I'm going to need to be strong and fast for this run. Major skills were mostly unnecessary, as I'm only going to be using the Staff of Worms and athletics to run around. I need to hit level 2 in order to get a 0 star, so I chose skills that would be easy to level up. Oh, and I also resurrected the Emperor. Interesting side note about this, not only will Boris follow the Emperor, but you can even take him out of the sewers. Again though, this would waste too much charge, and I did attempt to fast travel with the Emperor, but it didn't work. So I found Joffrey, gave him the Amulet of Kings, and headed off to Kvatch to find Martin. Oh look, a giant gate to hell has opened outside the city. Better go inside and have a look. So there was two ways that I could realistically do the Oblivion Gate. The first was to wait for the guard inside Oblivion to die, at which point I could resurrect him and use him to fight for me. The second was to simply run past all the enemies and get the Sigil Stone. You can actually pickpocket the Sigil Keep Key, so I didn't even need to kill this Daedra. Don't worry though, we are going to get plenty of use out of the Staff of Worms later on. Maybe a little too much use, but right now I really need to save the charge. So I grabbed Martin and headed back to Waynham Priory, where one of the Mythic Dawn patiently and respectfully waited while we finished our conversation. Remember kids, manners cost nothing. Then Sean Bean gave one of his famous speeches about teamwork, friendship, integrity, and he's going to die again, isn't he? Next I decided to go and meet Boris for a nice quiet drink. Things got a little rowdy and out of hand. A bar fight broke out and somebody got killed. As coincidence would have it, he was in fact a member of the Mythic Dawn and provided us with our first clue to track down the elusive cult. I bullied Gwyneth into giving me his copy of Manka Cameron's commentaries. Then it was off to go trudging through a sewer, a job very fitting of the Emperor's Secret Service no doubt. Boris got shot in the butt, make a meme about that one. No seriously, drop a line in the comments. I used to be an adventurer like yourself. Then one day I took an arrow to the butt. And you fill in the blanks. I'll give shout outs to my favourite one in the next video, so have fun with it guys. So the Mythic Dawn meeting in the sewers took me roughly an hour and a half. I had to keep taking breaks for my own sanity as I had to listen to his opening speech about joining the Mythic Dawn over and over again with each failed attempt.
The path of dawn is difficult, but the rewards are great. The path of dawn is difficult, but the rewards are great. The path of dawn is difficult, but the rewards are great.
I must have heard this line about 14 times at least. See, my plan was to let Boris do most of the fighting, and then after he died to reanimate his corpse and use him to finish off the rest of the Mythic Dawn. The problem I found is that once you reanimate someone, they will not be as strong as they were before they died. They still hit just as hard. Unfortunately, for some reason, their health has been severely decreased after they die. I'm not sure if this is due to stats resetting to a base level. I don't know what's going on, but basically, once you reanimate someone, they will not be as strong. So now that we know the location of the secret Mythic Dawn Dagon Shrine, it's time to go and get the Mysterium Xerxes. So after a quick trip to the Dagon Shrine, I took the Mysterium Xerxes and brought it back to Martin, and haha, no, that's not what happened at all. Indeed, this was possibly one of the hardest parts of this run. Now, I don't want to make the whole video about what went on in the Dagon Shrine, although it did take me an excessively long time to get through this, so I'll just gloss over a few of my attempts. My initial plan was to drop the Staff of Worms before I talked to Harrow, at which point I would give him all my possessions and he would grant me entry into the Dagon Shrine, at which point I could go back and pick up the Staff of Worms. Now, initially I didn't think I would actually need it. My plan was to just pick up the Mysterium Xerxes and run for the exit. However, I quickly learned that this was never going to work. Even now, as I've done this challenge, I'm still not sure why the gates were locked in the Dagon Shrine. Now, I couldn't find anyone with a key to unlock it, and since I don't have any equipment, I didn't have lockpicks either, so I pretty much had no way of getting out. Another problem I had was I couldn't kill anyone. Even if they did have a key, I wasn't able to attack them because there were no corpses around. So my plan was to first of all get caught by a local guard and get them to chase me up to the Dagon Shrine, at which point I would be able to get the guard to kill one of the Mythic Dawn agents, and just like that we have corpses to reanimate. I also learned while doing this quest that you can animate several corpses at once. In theory, I could build myself an army of the undead, and that's exactly what I did. True that my reanimated forces were a lot more squishy than they should have been, and I wasted a lot of charge as I had to keep reanimating them. It was a very long and tedious process as I had to just keep reanimating and staying away from the enemies. Although once the room was cleared, I was able to use wait commands to get my health back. So after returning the Mysterium Xerxes to Martin, our next quest is to hunt down some spies in Bruma. With no corpses around and very little options, I had to lure Gerald all the way to Bruma to have the guards take care of her. As for Gerald's accomplice, well, Oblivion has this thing called Radiant AI, in which the NPCs kind of just do their own thing. The other spy ended up getting killed somehow. I got a notification about it. I don't know when or where. With the spies taken care of, Martin turned his attention to the upcoming invasion. We needed a Daedric artifact. Since the Azura Star is accessible at level 2, that was the one I decided to get. I managed to pickpocket some glow dust from a merchant in the Imperial City, and I power leveled sneak and hit level 2. Now I actually had to drop my glow dust as the guards were coming and they would take it off me, so I had to pay a fine, and then once I got released from the prison area, I went and picked up the glow dust. So the vampires inside the gutted mine were very difficult to take down. However, if you lured them outside during the daytime and took them to the Shrine of Azura, the NPCs there would fight them. Eventually somebody would die, at which point I was able to use the Staff of Worms to resurrect them and help me fight the rest of the vampires. So this quest was actually really difficult. The vampires are very, very strong even at level 2, and the run would only get harder from here. Well, except for the next Oblivion Gate, that was actually really easy. See, once you've recovered the Daedric artifact, Martin will ask you to help the Bruma Guard close an Oblivion Gate located just outside of Bruma. It's actually pretty easy, as the captain of the guard, Bird, I believe is indestructible. He didn't once get knocked out within the gate. The rest of the guard did die, and I did try to resurrect them a few times, but it just wasn't worth it. Bird is pretty overpowered. The only difficult thing about this quest is you have to actually show Bird how to close the gate, which means he has to be in the room when you take the Sigil Stone, and he will battle pretty much every enemy he sees on the way up. So yeah, you have to deal with that. So for our next quest, Blood of the Divines, Joffrey gives us a key for an old ruin called Sinkato. So getting the Armour of Tiber Septum from Sinkato was the first part in the run where I thought this was over. I thought I had failed and there was no way to do it. See, there were no corpses within Sinkato, no random bandits, no dead NPCs that had wandered in, nothing. So this quest did actually take me hours to figure out exactly what to do, and I even considered giving up and calling it a failure. However, I knew I was going to need corpses inside of Sinkato. My first plan was to get a guardsman to chase me all the way up. Hopefully he would get killed by the ghosts inside of Sinkato, at which point I would be able to resurrect him. I ended up losing the guardsman, but he did take down a bandit for me, so I tried it with the bandit instead. Unfortunately, they wouldn't follow me inside Sinkato. I also tried this by getting Mazoga the Orc to follow me, but she wouldn't enter the ruin either. However, I did know there was a way to take down the 4 blades inside of Sinkato. However, it was going to be extremely tedious and I didn't really want to do it. But with literally no other option left, I began the long process of slowly taking down the blades. The first one I was able to take down using an arrow trap located in his area. All I had to do was hold block and hope that he stood within the area of the arrow trap, at which point it would take him down. I was only able to do this for 1 blade as the rest of the undead blades don't follow you to this area. So my next plan was basically to let the ghosts take down the undead blades. I had to stand very close to the blades and hope I didn't get hit. Remember that I'm not able to heal in this challenge. And speaking of healing, well, that was a lot of fun too. See, every time I would get low on health, I would have to leave Sinkato, get far enough away from an enemy, basically next to Coral, and use the wait command to get my health back, at which point I would fast travel back to Sinkato and begin the process of taking down the next blade. This strategy took me a good few hours to do and complete successfully. It would have been a lot quicker if I was able to heal, but that's the rules of the challenge. I actually don't really have much to say about Miss Gartland. The zombies and the goblins attacked each other quite a bit, although I wasn't able to really revive them. After running about trying to find the Great Sigil Stone, the King of Miss Gartland appeared. I ran past every enemy, picked a lock and escaped. So now we had nearly all the items to open Manka Cameron's paradise. The only thing left to do now was to allow the Great Gate to open outside of Bruma. Now I'm not really sure why, but every time I tried to revive one of the militia, the game would crash. I did also notice that the militia corpses do fade out, so I think this is intended and you're not supposed to revive them. Also, that wasn't my first attempt at that. I tried loads of times. The game would either crash or I'd end up getting killed. Strangely enough though, Martin never ended up dying. So even in a casual playthrough of Oblivion, battling the enemies inside the Great Gate is not recommended, as you are given a time limit to get the Sigil Stone. So I did try a few shortcuts. Nothing really worked, but I did just run through this gate. By the time I got to the Sigil Stone, I was on very low health and I died several times trying to get it. I even died once after I had already collected the stone. However, after much trial and error, I was eventually able to collect the Sigil Stone and clear the battlefield without getting killed, at which point I used the wait command and that was quest complete. So now we well and truly had everything for the ritual and I entered paradise. Now, Manka Cameron's Paradise was something I'd been dreading since I started this challenge. I wasn't really sure what I'd be able to resurrect here. You see, there are ascended mortals in this realm, and they do revive after a set amount of time anyway. I am able to use the Staff of Worms on them, but after a time they will just return to life anyway, at which point I'll lose all effect on them. I told Cathatet I would serve him as I actually had no way of fighting him. I freed Anaxes and was given the Bands of the Chosen and was able to enter the Forbidden Grotto. I enlisted the help of one of the Mythic Dawn who was unhappy with the rule of Manka Cameron. When Eldermill died I was able to resurrect him, however he also has the power of immortality, and so after a time he would just come back to life anyway and I would lose control of him. Eventually though, we finally made it to Manka Cameron. Now this fight was extremely difficult, and for the second time I thought this run was over. Originally I tried resurrecting Manka Cameron's children after they got caught in crossfire or Emandril killed them. It would give me control of them for a few seconds, however, due to the nature of their immortality, they would return to life soon enough. Also, I kept dying, like, a lot. And I mean, like, really a lot. This got way out of hand. So then I had to do something that I'm really not proud of, but I'd already spent so much time on this challenge, I wasn't willing to let it go. And I actually didn't violate the rules that I put in place at the start. Right, okay, 2 seconds. Let me just see if I can just... There we go, much better. I hate that I had to do that, but I literally had no other option. I also discovered that I could jump on top of the chandeliers on the roof. Eventually, Amandil took down Manka Cameron, and I was able to retrieve the Amulet of Kings. And for the final quest, we had to run through the Imperial City to light the dragonflies. This was pretty simple, as you can just run past all the enemies. And to answer the question, can you beat the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion using just the Staff of Worms? Yes, you can. So this was actually my first Can You Beat Oblivion challenge, which is crazy since it's actually my favourite game, so I'm definitely going to be doing more of them in the future. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe and all that good stuff. Leave any comments or suggestions for challenges, and join the Discord in the description if you want, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.